Hello everyone, welcome back. I hope your day is starting off just great. Let me share another amazing pic of our beautiful country while I introduce this video. This pic posted by Jean-Marc, and it is a picture of Lac Mégantic in Quebec. Just glorious with the fall colors coming through now. Thanks for posting this, Jean-Marc, a beautiful picture. The headline today is from the US ambassador himself, who relayed the message to us. The door has been closed. There will be no more negotiations and there will be no deal. And that sounds pretty dramatic. Sounds like something we should really get worried about. This does set up a very challenging near-term future for Canada economically. A challenging future, but a blessing in disguise. And I'm going to ask you this question. How should our government proceed after these new developments? And are we on track? And I'm going to go through some of the information for you right now. The headline, September 17th, just a couple of days ago here on CBC, Canada to launch CUSMA consultations after U.S. ambassador says, bigger deal not in the cards. No deal. The art of no deal. This is a huge development. Remember all this talk about Canada and the United States? We're negotiating a deal now. We're having talks. We're trying to iron things out. Well, there was really no negotiations going on in the true sense of the word negotiations. Basically, what happened was the United States imposed tariffs on Canadian imports. The president just unilaterally did this by executive order, citing national security risks due to the imaginary threat of fentanyl crossing the border into the United States. So he imposed tariffs on certain sectors on the Canadian economy, which is basically imposing a tax on Americans for the imports of those goods. And then it was the U.S.'s position that we should negotiate this. What would we negotiate? Well, you've put a 35% tariff on our steel exports. Let's negotiate now. Shall we negotiate it down to 20%, 25%, 18%? There was no number that Canada could negotiate and agree on because, of course, our free trade deal, the USMCA CUSMA, is set to be renegotiated next year. So Canada agreeing to any level of tariff or negotiating any number now would be counterproductive because then the Americans could just hold us to that next year. Well, you agreed to 18, you negotiated down from 35% to 18%. Now we're going to renegotiate the USMCA. You've already agreed to 18%, so we'll leave that in there. Of course, there was never going to be a deal. And this guy here now has let us know. This U.S. ambassador. Do you remember this guy? This is the guy that said this a couple of months ago. He told us this back in June 7th, that Canadians that were visiting the United States that were facing device searches and detainment was not a pattern. And he went on to tell us, we welcome Canadians to come and invest, to spend their hard-earned Canadian dollars at U.S. businesses. If a Canadian has had a disappointing experience coming into the United States, I'm not denying that it happened, but I'm saying it's an isolated event, and it's not a pattern. Yeah, I'll be right down there to spend my hard-earned money in the U.S. Yeah, good point. Yeah, I'm glad you told us that. And this same guy has now told us there's no deal to be done here, and what we have to prepare for now is renegotiation of CUSMA next year. So this is the situation we're in, and what I'm going to tell you right away is that this is going to be a very tumultuous, hard negotiation. It's not going to happen quickly, and it's going to be very, very difficult for Canada. We really don't know what to expect, what the U.S.'s position will be. So let me paint this picture for you. Where are we now, and what is Canada doing? Well, the chairman of the Federal Reserve in the United States, their top economist, who sets their monetary policy, warns that the U.S. economy's future looks murky. And when they use the word murky in that sentence, they might be referring to job growth revised down by almost 1 million through March, signaling economy on shakier footing than realized. Canada's job market saw unemployment fall for a second consecutive month in August, resulting in 66,000 job losses. So both Canada and the United States are seeing pressure on the job market. Well, why is that? Well, this is not rocket science. It's all related to U.S. government policy, the tariffs. The United States has imposed tariffs on imports from countries all over the world, which basically means American companies are paying a tax on everything they import. The cost of doing business for U.S. companies has increased by the taxes that they have to pay. So the company's profits are being squeezed. So the first thing companies usually do when their profits are being squeezed is they cut back on expenditures. And the easiest cutback is to pay your workers less and not hire as many. It also means less Canadian jobs because those same US companies will import less things from around the world because they're all more expensive. Just as US companies are reluctant to hire people and possibly firing people, the same is true in Canada. At the same time, the US is experiencing rising inflation because, of course, companies, as well as cutting back by not hiring people, are also raising their prices because the cost of what they manufacture is increasing. Canada, on the other hand, is facing a fairly benign inflation number, and that's because we haven't imposed taxes on ourselves. We haven't imposed taxes on everything we buy like the Americans did. So we're facing a poor jobs market, but not an inflation problem. And I know I've shown you a whole bunch of numbers here and graphs, and maybe some of you are not really following. And a lot of times when I show graphs, people's eyes glaze over and they go, oh God, why doesn't he just tell us what's going on? Well, let me give you an example here. I was just talking to a friend the other day who went to the store and said, I was going to buy coffee and it was a lot more expensive now. What's going on? Why is coffee so much more expensive? And I asked him, well, what brand of coffee are you buying? And he told me, and it was an American brand. And I said, well, that's easy to explain. It's because the United States has put tariffs on imports from all over the world, including Brazil and Colombia and everywhere that they import coffee from. In Brazil, a 50% import tax. So what happens is something like this. For example, there's companies in the United States that would buy coffee beans from Brazil. And now when they import those, they have to pay a 50% tax. And what do they do with those coffee beans? Well, they take them and they manufacture something. Well, what would that company manufacture with those coffee beans? Well, all Americans know, many of them buy that product every morning. They'd walk into one of these stores and say, hi, I'd like a grande, mocha, frappo, whatever the hell. And it used to cost $3.80, but now it costs $4.90. Because one of the main ingredients that that company uses to manufacture a grande, mocha, frappo, whatever the hell, is coffee beans that they had to buy from Brazil. So the price of the grande, mocha, frappo, whatever the hell has gone up. That's the definition of inflation. Americans are facing that in their own country. But there's more, because there's other companies in the United States that would import coffee beans from, say, Brazil, and they have to pay a 50% tax. And what do they manufacture? Well, they roast those beans and they grind them and they put them in cans and bags and they sell them to stores. And some of that coffee they export to Canada. And if a Canadian walks into a Walmart or a superstore in Canada and they go down the coffee aisle and they look at their favorite coffee that they used to drink, they say, it used to be $12 a can and now it's $18 a can. What's going on? Well, it's an American import. The cost for that American company has gone up to manufacture that product, and so they've had to raise the price. And my friend saw that price increase in Canada. And when we had our conversation, I said, well, don't buy it. It's an American product. Look for a different product. My favorite coffee comes from Italy, and it hasn't gone up in price. Because the Italians, they don't grow coffee beans in Italy. They haven't imposed a tax on themselves to import coffee beans. So they can buy coffee beans from Brazil, and then they can roast them and grind them and package them and export them. And their price hasn't gone up. But actually, I have to be honest, it's gone up a little bit. It's gone up, not as much as the American brand, but it's gone up a little bit. Why is that? Greed. This is another thing that tariffs cause. The price of all the American brands has gone up, and the competition has seen this, and it's a weakness that they can exploit and say, look, they've had to put their prices up 30%. Well, we can still be competitive if we raise our prices 10%. Our price will still be lower than theirs, but we're greedy. We want to make more money, so we're going to raise our prices a little bit as well. And this is another nefarious thing that happens when a government interferes with free trade and the free market system. This is just what happens. But having said all that, this example I've given with the coffee, this will play out in basically all products, all manufacturing, everything that the United States produces. This is why tariffs are bad. They will just make the United States marginally less competitive in the world. But that's what they want. Let them have that. But now let me get into what's Canada doing about this, and then you can think about what comment you should leave. Are we on the right track? So what is Canada doing about it? At every level of government in Canada now, we're in a race. We're in a race for our lives. We've had a fire lit under us. Now, politicians are not going to talk about it or refer to it like this. They're going to say, we're making efforts to diversify. That's the political way of saying it. But our politicians are rushing around trying to make deals and make new arrangements, set up new supply chains as fast as we can, diversify from the United States to replace the business that we will lose. And recently here, September 18th, while Donald Trump was having dinner with the King in England, Carney heads to Mexico in search of an ally and opportunities. Countries seek common approach as both deal with the giant between them. And Canada and Mexico are talking about securing and increasing direct trade between the two countries, port to port, airport to airport, excluding the United States. Reported here by CPAC September 16th, a huge development. BC approves CLIMS, I hope I said that right, LNG project. This is a massive new project, almost the same size as the Kitimat project that recently came online, selling our natural gas to someone else rather than the United States for a higher price. And that's why Mark Carney, immediately after being elected, was flying all over the world trying to make deals with other countries while pretending to work on a deal with the United States. As I said in the beginning of the video, there was really no deal to be done. It was just talk to them, keep them engaged, but work as fast as we can to diversify. At the same time, announcing nation-building projects that will be fast-tracked, like increasing the port capacity in Montreal to help us export more from our manufacturing center to Europe. Fast-tracking new LNG expansions that will use Canadian raw materials to construct the project, steel and aluminum. Mark Carney was well aware of the predicament we were in right from the get-go, right from when he started. And make no mistake, the whole country, all our leaders are in a mad dash to get this stuff going because we know what's coming. Next year, when the USMCA comes up for renegotiation, we have really no idea what position the United States will take. But can you take a guess what type of position they'll take? It'll be a hardline position. It may not make very much economic sense. It'll be a position that will probably be very hurtful for the Canadian economy, which might make the tariffs that we're dealing with now seem like not such a big deal. I really believe that next year, these renegotiations of the USMCA, and that will be a true negotiation, not like the fake negotiations we pretended to be having recently. Those negotiations are going to be tough. And while they're happening without knowing what the outcome will be, our government needs to move full speed on diversifying. Federal government, provincial governments, companies themselves, if you're running a private company in Canada, everyone needs to be aware that the future is uncertain. And the best thing to do when there's an uncertain future is diversify, diversify, diversify. So answer the question in the comment section. Do you think our governments, provincial and federal, are doing the right things, moving full speed to try and diversify? And some of you may think, well, they're not going fast enough. I've observed the speed of how things happen in politics and change in policy in Canada. And I have to say, what I'm observing over the past 6 months is a lightning fast reaction. Here we have an NDP premier in BC that has approved a major construction project, a major export project. To be honest, that probably would not have happened if we weren't in the economic situation in dealing with the US as we are now. And a federal leader who's going full speed trying to increase relations and make deals with countries all over the world. So I think we're on the right track. My opinion is, yes, the government's doing the right thing. We're on the right track. I hope that they can all work together and try and do it as fast as possible, get these nation-building projects approved and under construction as soon as possible. I think we have to act, as I said in the beginning of the video, like this is a blessing in disguise, like a fire has been lit under us, so we can move at lightning speed to do what we should have been doing slowly over the past decades that we didn't do. That's my opinion. Let me know what all of you think in the comments section. Let's see what insights you can share with us. Thanks for watching, everyone. Subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. If you want to support my work, consider becoming a channel member by clicking the join button. Have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you all on the next one.